Man makes me endure 12 hours of pain. I destroyed his career. If you're new here, do consider subscribing to help me feed my channel and grow my cat. Let's get started. TLDR, I destroyed a man's career for making me needlessly endure 12 hours of pain. In my teens, I had to have numerous operations. Therefore, I always ended up at one particular hospital that specialized in my condition. Now the hospital was high quality, with staff that was very caring, and looked out for the patients they had. They gave you essentially the 5-star treatment. After all, they were charging our insurance an incredible amount of money, so that probably had something to do with it. But one particular operation I had, it all went to heck. It wasn't like this type of procedure wasn't something I had not done in the past. It was about the 3rd time I needed to have it done. No pressure whatsoever. Essentially, it entailed breaking both your legs, placing rods into them to put them back into the proper place so they could end up growing correctly. They would be in for a few months to heal, and then they were taken out. During that time, I would have to turn small little handles to reposition my bones according to a pre-printed out schedule given to me by my doctor. It hurt like hell, but it was worth it in the end. Despite how often I had done it, it was still extremely painful, especially for the first few weeks after the procedure was done. Any vibrations would send shockwaves of pain throughout your entire body, regardless of how well doped up you were on painkillers. So the doctors took extra care to ensure that any trip back home was as smooth as possible. Literally, they all understood that without a jet back to your home city, for anyone more than 40 minutes away from the hospital, it was medically required that you traveled back in a med jet. Imagine every single bump you experience when driving for any period of time. Now imagine being sent into little shockwaves of 10 out of 10 pain every single time you went over that bump. You get the idea. Now, most hospitals offer individuals a liaison to individuals within the hospital to deal with their insurance. Just have that individual talk to the doctor, and right away they would work out what the doctor wanted with the company. No hassle. We didn't take up that offer because we understood how everything worked, and it was never an issue. But the hospital always offered us one anyway. And yes, these liaisons were not employees of the insurance company, but of the hospital. They were designed to look after the best interests of the patients and justify it to the insurance company. Then, our designated liaison decided that our request to not have one was unacceptable, and thus he would intentionally intervene at every change he could. He even went as far as to deny our nurse requests for extra pillows because the hospital only allows X number of pillows per person, despite the nurse literally stating that it was fine. But nope, since he was at a higher level, he apparently had the final say. When it was nearing our time to leave the hospital, like always, the doctor wanted to bill the insurance for the medical jet because it was medically required. Same old, same old. However, our jacket's liaison disagreed with the doctor's assessment that it was medically required, justifying his opinion based upon our insurance company's definition of medically required. Naturally, the doctor flipped his lid and verbally curb-stomped the idiot. Listen, simply avoiding pain isn't something that the insurance will cover. It's not medically required to avoid pain. Are you kidding me? You realize this patient would have to drive 12 hours in a cramped ambulance with 2 broken legs in excruciating pain if they didn't fly? It's absolutely unheard of. You literally would have to have 2 EMTs escort them home just in case anything happened. The cost is only marginally smaller than the darn jet. Plus, there is a small chance the rods could become disrupted if anything happens in the car. That's the justification. The odds of any crash happening are not high enough for the company to justify it. This would hurt the company if they keep doing this. Listen, I don't know why on God's green earth you are even arguing with me. This isn't effing up to you. You are not a doctor. You have no medical training. You were given a goddarn list of the insurance company's policies, and now you think you can properly diagnose what is or what isn't medically required? I've done this for thousands of patients with this very company. Now get your ass back to the office, bill the effing insurance company properly, and shut the hell up. You work for us, not for them. I was in earshot of the entire conversation. A week later, On the day of departure, we learned what happened when he went back to his office. He had called the insurance company and began going through the proper channels to get the jet approved. However, he began dropping small hints to the rep that in his opinion, driving would also be fine. So naturally, on the day of our departure, we got a call from the insurance company denying the request. I was furious. There wasn't time to appeal the decision. There wasn't anything any of us could do. Even the doctor was stuck because the liaison worked for a different department and he couldn't even fire the guy. He apologized time and time again and ensured the 12-hour ambulance ride would be as comfortable as possible, and even told the driver to keep me as medicated as possible to ensure it went well. Naturally, it did nothing. It was the most hellish 12-hour experience of my life. I was screaming the entire 12 hours. The ambulance wasn't even outfitted with a bed. It only had some type of hammock type thing. The two EMs had to endure non-stop screaming from someone who didn't even belong in the ambulance in the first place. Everyone was furious. Everyone blamed that one man. Everyone wanted him fired, but they had no medical reason to fire him because according to the union's policies, he technically did what he was supposed to do. The only way for him to be let go was for him to have caused the patient some type of harm that the doctor warned about. So, days after my trip, my doctor insisted that I see a medical professional in my hometown, ensure nothing happened on the trip. This was like the third time I had done this, so it was a pretty common request that I was familiar with. As I was still fuming, this is when I hatched my plan. I knew I was the only one with control over the rod's proper position. I knew having the rods not properly dialed in for a few days wouldn't do any long-term harm and would only result in a lot of pain to dial it back in afterwards. I knew my doctor would be furious if anything happened out of the ordinary, his reputation being on the line and such. And I knew no medical professional had checked my rods to confirm their current setting after the trip. So, I popped 3 pain pills, waited for them to kick in, and unscrewed every single rod to the lowest setting possible.